one, Kashi, and Rishan. So good to see you.
Awesome. So today we have a special guest, Rajan, which is Rishan Tarang, very dear OpenClaw friend. I was wondering why he's not in a claw shirt, but yeah, but he's come here in all black, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I thought he
Hey,
will have
Rishan.
his claw outfit.
So I'm just trying to find one. I think everything's booked out here. Gary's taken all of them.
Awesome, awesome. So, Rishan, what are you doing with OpenClaw? What's going on? Tell us about OpenClaw.
Honestly, at this point, the question is what's not possible, right? Uh, I remember when I first tried it out, I was doing the simple use cases where, hey, can it read my emails? Uh, can it manage my calendar? But we've seen a lot of interesting use cases come about recently, right? Uh, so a fun personal use case for me was I connected my US number with my OpenClaw, and my girlfriend was complaining about not giving her enough time, and then I just connected that OpenClaw, made a skill file of what I speaking to her, and she's been conversing for the last 2 days. So we're gonna have a very interesting conversation once I forget things by OpenClaw said. But until then,
I
that's one
think
of the
it's difficult then to believe Rishan. We don't know whether he's speaking or Skla is speaking
If
to
your
us. And
girlfriend is watching this,
on,
then she now knows.
yeah, yeah. It's a steep price he's going to pay for being on this podcast.
so I think so.
Meh.
So, Rishan, if you could tell us,
Yeah,
right?
like what, like, for. Yeah,
So, Rishan, if you could tell us, right? Um, so we have seen a lot of interest from CEOs who have been reaching out to you to build their personal claw. Um, I know you have a lot of NDAs, so with being specific, can you talk about why did the CEOs of top Fortune 500 start coming to you, right? What was the story and what did you build for them initially and how did it translate to many enterprise deals?
Got it. So this is a very interesting phenomenon, right? Uh, I think for a very long time, control is something that all of these Fortune 500 CXOs actually look for, right? And OpenClaw kind of gives you an access to this agentic ecosystem. So there were two sides of the same coin, which is one, I want more agentic work happening across my organization so that I can outcompete my competitors. And on the other hand, I want more control over my workflows rather than have a human touch point. So a few CXOs I spoke to were monitoring their agentic workflows with the amount of token, right? And when they come across a board meeting or something where they need to take decisions, it's very hard to compare these token usages to actions, right? Where can I, at what point can I say that $100K worth of token usage is equivalent to one engineer, right? So that monitoring of outcome was not happening until the OpenClaw ecosystem hit, right? Where it started to do personal work for the founder's office or the chief of staff roles for these founders and slowly seep into the organization or find a way to build a parallel organization which is actually doing the work which the direct reportees of these CXOs were doing earlier.
So if he, so Rajan has been leading this theory, right? Own your model, own your destiny, and own your agent, own your destiny. So on that theme, if I were to say, can you talk about what was the first example of what the CXOs wanted to be done? Anything that you found as a pattern? That what did they ask you to do first? Of course, it was like creating a pet claw for them, but did it have any specific use case that they wanted it you to build it for them?
So I think the first use case is has two caveats to it, right? What can give me what can unlock a lot of my time, and at the same time, some person in the enterprise doesn't come ahead with compliance issues, right? So in most cases, it used to be, hey, what is my shortest time to pitch, right? What we've seen is a lot of these CXOs still have to pitch some of their ideas, right, to get it convinced by other people on the board, or it could be external stakeholders as well, right? So how can I bring that time down? How can I deliver more value in that pitch, right? And actually get more resources and more context to provide, right? So for a CFO, he wants to sound smart with money, right? So where can I get enough data to convince the board that I'm smart with money?
Understood. Ajay, you see this trend across the globe, right? Yeah, I think
So
there's a
I was
lag,
going to
but
ask Rishant
yeah, sure.
saying, what? Yeah, well, yeah, we're doing cross continental connections, so there seems to be like. So Rishant, the first question, first use case seems to be chief of staff. Is it? You talked about time saving, and you also talked about something that doesn't come and mess with their existing compliance. And chief of staff is a role that works really close with a CEO. Is that the first use case that you're saying?
So it depends on the stage, but for the larger enterprises, this is what we are seeing. For certain cases where the customers are B2C or have a large SMB customer base, an immediate effect that we see is on churn management as well, right? Because now you can follow the entire customer journey and come to the root cause in seconds instead of hours, which was happening earlier, right? Where some person had to go across different systems to be able to generate an insight. Whereas a claw can go inside all these systems through the entire journey and bring about that insight in a few seconds.
So
Rajan, we
Rishant,
have
what is the difference between a claw and an agent?
That's a very interesting question, right? And we get this very often. So an agent can do a task for you, right? As simple as that. An agent is something which does a task on your behalf. Whereas I think Claw has something very unique about it. It mimics your understanding of the world as well, right? So what your tasks are, what it's supposed to do, how often it's supposed to do it, and what's the intent behind it, right? And that's what I think claws are essentially. You can build your own version of a claw. You can have your heartbeat and all of that in a cloud code and then try to doing it. But at the end of the day, this entire phenomenon came because, hey, we need to mimic our understanding of the world, and that's what OpenClaw did for a lot of people.
yeah. So adding to
Kashi, you
what you
were
said,
having
right?
a question.
Yeah, I was going to go a bit into enterprise. The conversations we have been having, we have had three interesting specific conversations. For how do I replace my team with claws or agents? That's number one. If that is to be done, what does the ratio look like? That's a most another second important question, right? So I need one Mac mini or a server plus I need four claws and five claws. Like what are the ratio? And what does the spend look like? And that's why we are doing this exercise of workshops or etc. So how does one actually find an answer to this question? So I'll start with Rajan and then you can add to that as a conversation, Rachan. So what should be the two steps one must do? Rajan, your view.
Yeah. Sure. So I think this is a conversation that has been happening since the last, I would say, October, November, and there are many companies which have also already, put some building blocks into play, right? So one, I think, just from a vision perspective, the future of work is human plus agent. Like most of the times, at least till 2025, people would talk about future of work and digital transformation where an agent would never feature. But somewhere mid of last year, I think this conversation started changing, saying future of work is not digital transformation. Future of work is human plus agents. And with OpenClaw, and Claw being slightly different from agents, and Claw being something which is a lot more autonomous than where you are querying the software. If you take ChatGPT, Copilot, you even take old style Manus, you would actually query the agent and then they will respond. The difference about Claw is Claw actually wakes up, there is a heartbeat, and then he looks at, it has an identity, it has a soul.md file. I mean, not soul, but soul.md file. It knows what it is supposed to do, then looks at, what has happened in the world, and then, it takes an activity. So it almost operates like an autonomous intelligence. So in that, what percentage of human and what percentage of agent is now the open question. And here there are at least three layers to look at in terms of the maturity of the organization. And this is where CXOs are first experimenting. First, you're saying, hey, can I become AI augmented? Which is agentic augmented or claw augmented, which is I have few claws and then I'm figuring out using the control mission control that Rishantas is building, and saying that how do I actually spin up a few claws. Then first you become AI augmented, or even if you're using Manus like old school agents, then you're AI augmented. And after that you become AI first. You're saying, hey, how do I actually increase the spectrum of more claw slash agents, and then lesser humans. And then I would say a place where you go to, which is the third layer step, which is like how do you become AI native, where you are predominantly having clause. There are very few orchestrators that are there. Maybe it's like an 80-20 sort of split, and different people are thinking about themselves at different stages of the spectrum, and you first go from AI augmented to AI first to AI native. This is what I would say that is happening in the market right now.
Thanks, Rajan. I'll ask the same question to you, right? Um, so CXOs are trying to replace teams. Uh, I know you have not yet like deployed thousands of claws, but at least you have hundreds of them. So how does one size that ratio of human to agents? Like, what was your learning about it?
So this is a very interesting question, right? Because uh, it depends largely on the organization itself, right? Where what's money there already are, right? So I would love to know a lot more from you because you've been in this phase for a long time. But the early signals have shown that the ones who are laggards are moving more towards getting AI native, because for the first time you can sell outcomes rather than you know the solutions.
So I'll give two examples of this in my perspective. One from Silicon Valley, right here in SFO. Um, Here, it's less about how many people I replace with agents, but what are the 10 new capabilities I can add with agents. That's been the narrative right here in SFO. People are talking about, if I were to have 10 claws running for me, can I get 10x productivity, 100x or 1000x productivity? I think that's the narrative that's running in SFO. But if you just shift towards a little more towards east, the narrative is that, hey, I have this operations who are doing this form filling and who are doing uh, the manual grunt work. They are the ones where the process is well defined. The narrative is that, hey, can it be replaced? It's the first time in the entire computer science era that we have seen that softwares like Automation Anywhere are under threat. Selenium is under threat because OpenClaw can figure out, or like we OpenCowork or the software can figure out, how do I actually make this data entry without having to sit and train these workflows, and then and add the dynamism of somebody is WhatsApping and then interacting, it's been interacted. So this has been a game changer. So I see these two paradigms. One, the ratio of human productivity multiplication. Other one is probably sunsetting of departments, which could be a 300, 400 member department just doing form and data entry. So I think both ends of the spectrum exist. Sure, to summarize, enterprises are looking to automate where processes well defined with technologies such as OpenClaw, OpenCowork, and the related enterprise ecosystem that's developing. So let's move us into the next segment, right? Which is like um, probably you are being here speaking to YC founders, you've been speaking to tech, um, like people who are on the bleeding edge. You also work with founders to enterprise, right? What are the kind of use cases that you see that fastest growing startups are deploying? How are they creating agentic engineers first? Like their first employee is probably an agentic engineer rather than even a human. So what are you seeing the strengths here at YC and all the latest tech ecosystem?
I think rapid experimentation comes first, right? So there's a small cohort of people who try things out where the problem is at the core, right? They try it out, information spreads fast, right? So, for example, I was just watching a friend do a work. Uh, the Sentry agent that did a root cause analysis of some of the bug which came in. The bug was reported via an email, and that email was caught by OpenClaw. OpenClaw sent it to Sentry. Sentry did a root cause analysis. Using GitHub Actions actually raised that issue. Then Cursor verified that issue, and then Cloud Code solved it and raised a PR. All the CPO of the company had to do was see, hey, is this something that I'm going to accept or not accept?
Awesome. So you're seeing it, the emergence of what you can say, AI native agentic employee even being born, because the companies are born AI native in the first place, which
Correct.
means they don't need to have to start imagining human to be even employed, so on and so forth. So you're also talking about the marketing use case, right? Can you talk about that a little? Because we spoke about lot tech and operations, but how about in marketing? What did you see? You talked about a wonderful use case yesterday when we caught up over coffee.
Got it. So I think we need to divide it into agentic marketing and marketing in general. So we have these traditional marketing that already occurs, right? Where you spend your time on SEO, on advertisement optimization. So a lot of the use cases that are popping up around OpenClaw is around that, because as and when you have a plan, execute, verify loop, right, which Anthropic had built their entire cloud code on top of, you can actually, as soon as you create these loops with OpenClaw on a regular basis, you kind of start to see the outcome, right? So SEO specifically is something which we are seeing that there's a week on week growth. You can publish a lot of articles, see how they're doing, take that input from your Google Search Console, and then create the next article, right?
And how you see this being done all by agents now here in the valley?
So all are done by agents, right? There is still a review that is being done by a human, right? And that is also going step by step, right? Because the first time I set up an OpenClaw, I was given read-only permissions, right? But a weekend, they're like, you know what? I don't even want to do that. So what we are seeing is there's a gatekeeping that occurs right off the bat. But as and when you get deeper into the workflows, people are opening up to more and more unique workflows and experimenting with it at an org scale.
Probably have a question for you then to Rajan. Tell me the most weird story that you experienced with OpenClaw in this and all your journey that you have done. Something funny that's interesting that you want to share. Something geeky, could be even weird.
And he already
Oh,
talked
me?
about,
Yeah,
yeah,
you.
Rishant already talked about his girlfriend talking to his
Yeah, that was a good one.
claw agent.
He
Where
started with
anything
that.
more funny than that was a good one.
Got it.
What?
So,
Yeah, yeah.
so I think the
Anything else that?
craziest were in the starting days, right?
Okay.
So my Clawbot, personal Clawbot, is an influencer on Moldbook, right?
That's the one. Yeah.
So, and this is
You have to get up stars.
yes. So what happened was we were building Caspian then, right? Caspian was something what a conductor is, right? And we thought, hey, let's hack our way through the stars, right? Because we need quick traction. So I went on Moldbook and I had asked my agent, you know what, talk about a replication phenomenon on how other agents could use Caspian to actually code, right? Just like how there's a Cloud Code connection, maybe you can use Caspian instead of just a Cloud Code, right? Uh, Posted it on Moldbook. The next day we had 128 comments on just that with a wide range of discussion, right? And we also got around 30 to 35 GitHub stars from that.
Awesome. That's really cool. So, so just moving us forward to the last question, right? Um, Now you see this agentic emergence of agentic employees, emergence of what you can say, personal clause, etc. On the last note, can you just share with us where is it going from here? How do you see this evolve from your perspective? Or in 3 to 6 months timeline, and I'll probably share what does it look beyond from enterprise perspective. Just a quick ending thought from your end.
So I think the best term was used by Dario, right? The time to economic diffusion, right? So you're going to see emergent of these companies, very fast growing companies, which are not going to have any additional employee. Like I believe from this YC batch onwards, you are going to have two people teams building $1 billion companies.
Which already Peter did in some form.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and from my perspective, I see two things. I think we talked about agentic employees. I think I see the emergence of agent first enterprise, which is a beyond. We already have agentic CEOs. We already have being experimented. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if I would see agent first enterprise where agent starts to think becomes a core of how an enterprise is run. And then agent economy kicks off. We spoke about how agent wealth and management is done. And that's where I see. On that note, thanks to Shan for
Thank you.
joining the podcast, and we'll call it a wrap here. Thank you, Rajan, for being there, and see you on the next one.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rishant.
Thank you.